All right, this is Glenn Beck. Make men dangerous again. This is powerful.
Young men are making a terrible mistake. They are taking 4 of what should be the most adventurous, life-changing years of their life, and they're spending them at a university where they're lectured about how toxic and privileged they are. They emerge with debt and 0 prospects, or very few, prepared for a world that doesn't exist anymore or soon won't. Future-proofing our kids against the rise of AI and the fall of common sense. That's what everybody, at least I as a dad, that's what I worry about. I am going to introduce you to a young man who skipped college and instead sailed around the Falkland Islands, became an EMT, learned Spanish, wrangled horses in Wyoming, is getting his pilot's license as he flies planes in Colorado, and so much more. And his father, who created this epic alternative to a 4-year degree for his son and for possibly yours. Welcome 2 of the men behind The Preparation, How to Become Confident, Competent, and Dangerous. Matt and Maxim Smith.
Wow, so you sailed around the Falkland Islands. Your son became an MT. You wrangled horses in Wyoming. And now he's going to get his pilot license, and he said so much more. In less than 4 years? We're doing something wrong, aren't we?
Maxim, Matt, welcome. How are you?
Doing well. How are
Doing
you?
well, thanks.
Good.
Thanks for having us.
I'm so excited to have you on. I have a 19-year-old son, and we have gone back and forth on college, and he's like, "What am I going to college for?" And I'm like, "I don't want you to go to college, but I don't know exactly what to do." And I saw this and I thought, please, I want to pursue this because I want to pursue this with my son. I just think this is brilliant. This is the first real answer for what do you do with a young man that is lost. And Maxim, I want to ask you, because this is what my son has said to me. Dad, you go to college, what is the point? So I go to college and then maybe that job is still available with AI, and then what? I get a job and I work at a place I don't really like and still can't afford a house or a life? Is that the way you felt?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, my dad never persuaded me to go to college, but I remember it's probably about a year and a half ago, I was thinking, what do young men have to look forward to? And so they have these 3 main paths, college being the main one, and then it's like, what, you can't really afford anything, you can't buy your own house anymore because you're probably not going to make enough money to do so. And yeah, exactly, you're going to go to college to get a degree that maybe gets you something, maybe gets you a job, maybe gets you good money, but what else do you have from there? So yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
And what were the other paths that you looked at?
For me personally, I would say the only other path was, just because my dad's been an entrepreneur his whole life, was doing that instead.
So, Dad, you're watching your son. You're seeing this. You are just an entrepreneur that, has done it. But I think even that, you and I are both from a different time of entrepreneurship, where in some ways it was harder to be an entrepreneur, and in some ways it's much harder now to be an entrepreneur. It's just different. So Tell me your journey through this.
No, actually, I guess I should say that this is a book that my mentor, Doug Casey, wanted to write for the last 12 years. He called it Renaissance Man when he first pitched me on it 12 years ago. The idea being, well, when he pitched me on it, he said, I want to call it Renaissance Man. And I said, well, tell me more. What's it about? And he said, well, the 3 most important verbs in every language are be, do, and have. And I want the book to be about that. And frankly, at the time, I didn't know what he meant by that. I asked a couple follow-up questions, didn't really get anything from him. And every couple of years,
Be, do, have. Interesting. Be, do, have. Think about that.
He would, and Doug's written lots of books, but every couple of years, Doug would kind of pitch me on it again. And at the same time, he would remind me that it's a lot of brain damage, he would say, to write a book. And you don't make any money writing books.
Yeah.
So, I'm getting mixed messages. But when he was 17, on the cusp of 18, I could see in him and feel in him the anxiety, the uncertainty. I mean, this is 2 years ago, so we're coming out of COVID still. I mean, the world became incredibly uncertain for everybody, I think, during that era. And I think young people got the shaft in that in a big way and created more uncertainty. And but I could see his anxiety. Like we, like all men, we want to be somebody, but we know we have to do something that matters in order to become someone that matters, So it didn't sound obvious, like there was no real clear path. And because I'm a college dropout, so I didn't grow up. He didn't grow up with me saying college is the key to success, because that was the key to my success. So in some ways that made it harder for him, I think, because it was like, at least he wasn't propagandized with, oh, well, this is a strategy in my work.
100%. I faced the same thing. I didn't go to college. I went to college for a semester when I was 30. I couldn't afford it. And so I have said my whole life that because I didn't go to college, I don't think in the box, which helps me. You look at life completely differently, and it's helped me. And so I've never been really for college. My wife has been for college. I'm not for college, but it put us in the situation to where my kids were like, well, then what? And we didn't know then what.
Well, we didn't know then what either. So then when seeing him like this, I went back to Doug and I said, let's flesh out this idea a little more. And we came up with basically what you could really essentially put on a napkin, a list of skills, occupations, games, and activities, essentially, that like a Renaissance man would ultimately have. That was his idea, under the Renaissance man theme.
For anybody who doesn't know what a Renaissance man is, I don't even know if that's a term understood anymore. Explain what a Renaissance man is.
Well, that's why the book's not called Renaissance Man. I guess it was myself.
Right.
You're exactly right. So basically, a Renaissance man is somebody who can, well, Glenn, I think you're a good example of this. You can paint. Mm-hmm. You can write. You're a man of many talents. You can do lots of things engaging with the real world. You're not limited to specialization, where you're a cog in a wheel, you do one thing. You understand the world around you, and you're able to successfully engage in that world and create in that world.
Right.
That's what a Renaissance man is, in simple terms. So that's where we started from. And fortunately, Maxim was a great sport about it and willing to follow our direction. And it really was not well structured in the beginning. You have to understand it was very loose. And we only came up over the last 2 years with a much more structured approach to it, to make it so he could be more effective, and ultimately then it translates well for others to apply.
Okay, so what's the best way to take this apart? Should we do with the be, do, have? Let's start with the be, because that's the first thing you have to do, if I'm not mistaken, Maxim, right?
Yes, yeah, that's one of the primary things that lets you start it all.
Okay.
You need that for sure.
Yeah, I think it's important to understand the kind of orientation between the two, because we are today, or we're motivated generally by having. Mm-hmm. We like to have a nice house. We'd like to have a beautiful spouse. We'd like to have a new car or the latest iPhone or whatever. Especially in our consumer culture, this is like what people focus on. The problem is that it's not well understood that having is actually just a byproduct of doing. It comes along by doing. And so doing is the operative. Doing is where the power is. Like by doing, that's where you can change things and can ultimately get to the have.
But you don't, this is the thing that I've talked to my children about a lot. You can't just do, because I grew up poor. My kids have grown up surrounded by success, which is, I think, much more detrimental than poor. But I've tried to explain, you weren't there for the tough years. You know what I mean? And you can't just do, you must be different. You must know who you are, what you serve, what you're trying to create, how you're trying to make life easier for other people. When you know that, then you'll find your do, and then you'll have.
Hey, my name is Jerry Norton, and in the next 30 seconds...
Yeah, I think you're exactly right about that. And I totally agree. I think it's very hard for a young person to believe in who they are,
right,
until they're engaged in the world and practicing it. And so what we do in the book is we plant the seed of be. We try to explain to them this orientation, and that truly the doing is the operative. Doing is your tool. You have lots of energy, lots of time, no liabilities. I mean, lots of possibilities, open to novelty in a way that you won't be when you get older. I mean, well, anyway, doing is where your power is. It's the operative. But be is the only thing that matters. It's the only thing that matters. And so we try and plant the seed around that early on. And we actually put people through an exercise, which sounds trivial at first, where we have them develop a personal code because just to give them, get them to begin to answer and think about at least the most important question, which is not what people ask young men typically before they go to college.
What do you want to do?
Essentially, who are you going to work for? It's really the version of the question. It's what kind of man do you want to become? What kind of man do you want to become?
So, Maxim, can you take us through your personal code on the man that you walk us through how you got here, if you can. Take us through the process so we understand it a bit. But what is your be? Who do you want to become? How did you answer that?
Well, I think I kind of answered that in the beginning. As soon as this list of games, activities, and occupations was given to me, I had always loved the story of the Count of Monte Cristo. Mm-hmm. I'd read it and seen one of the versions of the movie. And despite all the revenge stuff, we're not, not talking about that part. Yeah. It's about the fact that during a period of about 14 years, he transformed himself into a completely different man with lots of skills. And that was kind of my image of the man I wanted to be at the time. I think it's morphed a little bit, changed a little bit, but that's where it all started in the beginning.
So how did you put that together do you have to, when you write this out, how did you formalize that?
Definitely writing it out.
We have a symbols. Do you want to describe the structure to them?
Yeah, well, the structure of it is there's three main parts. There's the moral code part, which is where you kind of draw the line in the sand. This is where you write out what you will and will not allow yourself to do.
Can you be
and
specific
you make it very
on that?
clear. Yeah, let's say.
Oh, isn't that interesting? You write out what you will and will not allow yourself to do. Now think about that. We're talking about becoming, and you're writing a moral code, an ethical code that you are going to stick to no matter what you will and will not allow yourself to do. And remember, the do is a tool to get to be and to have. Very powerful.
Like, for example, I won't do anything that degrades myself, or I will endure any bearable condition, for example. Things like that, and then it moves over to virtues. So we speak about the classic Greek and Roman virtues, and we lay out a list of them in the book, and we have people pick out 5 or 7 of those virtues that they add to their list and try to pursue. And then the last section is your competencies, and that's where you write down. It's an ever-increasing, ever-expanding list over the 4 years in the preparation, where you keep adding your new competencies, your new skills. So really, in the beginning, it was just kind of writing out. I didn't have the virtues so much. I think I added that later on, but it was writing out the things I would allow myself to do and would not allow myself to do.
Yeah, this is the way I see it is, I'm not one who loves rules, okay? I don't love, all the rules. That there's so many in the world. And his generation has grown up in the most surveilled, tracked, scheduled of any people ever to walk the face of the earth, you know? And so those rules are very confining to young people, but rules that they choose for themselves, rules that because of observing themselves, like if they
Think about that. This youngest generation is the most tracked and monitored and controlled generation ever upon the face of the earth. But you're asking them to say, what virtues would you seek? What will you do and what will you not do? And what will you commit to? Think of that. How powerful that is and how freeing that is and how responsible that is.
engage in behavior that they see makes them feel degraded to do. You know, it could be with porn, for instance, which is not uncommon among young people. It could be lying. You know, a little white lie. Maybe people say, "Oh, that's not so bad." Well, you know, I feel a little degraded if I tell a white lie. If you ask me out for dinner on Friday and I say I'm busy when I really just am not in the mood for it this week, next week would be better. But I tell you I'm busy, that little white lie makes me feel small. So like observing my own responses, the way I behave in the environment, you develop a set of rules. I'm not going to do this anymore. And it sounds trivial, I know. But this is, for a young person, this is the beginning of real self-esteem, because it's the first time they are deciding who they are and what is acceptable to them and what is not acceptable to them for their own conduct, not for other people, but just for themselves. They can it's the start of them taking control over their life with these rules. And they're binary.
This is a special trade designed to be used.
Just go into something else.
Headlines remind us daily, truth is being silenced, and when truth is silenced, lives are at risk. Now imagine this. You're a single mom.
I'm going to end it here. We're going to get into more of this. I'm going to do this. And he's getting into his preborn stuff. I'm going to cut him off. Here, let's skip past it. What are we responsible for? Our choices, our commitments, our what we will and won't do, our virtues. When we say that we are responsible for those things and accountable to ourselves first and to God secondly, where does that put our responsibility? Where does it put our power of choice? Where does it put our power of action and thought and deed? Think about that. This is so powerful that it is understated. And I know this is only 18 minutes. We're going to break this down more. I love this accountability and this responsibility. Do is where the power is, but it comes back to becoming, and it becomes lastly to have. The have is not as important as the do and the be. And the be is really powerful because if you set your eyes on Christ and pick the virtues of Christ, and you pick doing things that help you become those virtues, then you say, what am I going to have? What am I going to become when I focus on these type of behaviors, these types of virtues? Holy cow, this is powerful, powerful, more than I can say. And this is what we need to get back to. Not 4 years of college, and maybe not even a mission. A mission is important, and it's 2 years. But don't get me wrong. Don't misunderstand me. This teaching has to come before they go on a mission. You could say a mission is an option, but it's not a necessity. But the becoming is, and the doing is, and not focus just on the having. Wow, this is just powerful in a Christ-like way. Roger Martin here from Lockwood, Montana. we'll get back to this more, but this is part one. Glenn Beck, Making Men Dangerous Again. And I want to switch it around a little bit. And this is making men godly. And this should make women like Heavenly Mother again. This should make men like God again. Holy cow, this is powerful. Again, think about this. When you think about Christ and His coming, then the power to create, the power to do, the power to become, and lastly, the power to have. We have too much focus on having and too little focus on becoming and too little focus on doing. Good day. God bless us in our wisdom and understanding how these connect with Christ in a very godly, very powerful, very manly way, very womanly way, very God-like Heavenly Mother, very God-like Heavenly Father. And I say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.